Okay, so now we've got everything done in Blender we want to do. We're ready to export. Almost. First thing that we need to do is make sure that our UVs are all set up right. Basically, the UVs are the flat maps. We've talked about them in the past when it came to materials, and it's crucial that our objects are all UV unwrapped in Blender and our UVs look nice and clean when we bring them into the Unreal Engine. So I'm going to go ahead and start off. I'm going to go into object mode here, and then I'm going to select an object. I'll select this object here, and you have to kind of do this one at a time, unfortunately. So you got a lot of objects, you got a lot of unwrapping to do. So we click on this object or this object, we go back up here to UV editing, and then we switch from object mode to edit mode, and under UV you go to Smart UV Project, and then OK. And it cleans up the UVs. See, these are basically flat maps of this object. Each one of these is going to be tied to how the materials operate, similar to what we did when we were making our own materials. Once you get this all set the way you want, you go ahead and go on to the next one. So you switch back over to object mode, and I'll go to this object, switch back to edit mode, and then we go to UV, Smart UV Project. Okay. And also, if this isn't working for you, you might have to create a new, actually it should work fine. It should look like this basically though. Okay, so like that, and then we'll go to object mode, select the next one, and go back to edit mode. And these ones don't look bad, but some of them look sometimes really bad. So we just want to make sure that it's all nice and clean. Okay. Now let's go to the actual gallery walls, switch back to object mode. And a good way to do this also is maybe even to turn off the objects that you're working on that you've already unwrapped. So let's go to object, switch to edit mode, UV, Smart UV Project, OK. Some of them don't need it. Click on the next one, object mode, do the skylights here, switch back to edit mode, okay, and then go to UV, Smart UV Project. All right, object mode, go to the frames here. Okay, that doesn't look too bad, but I'm going to still do it. And of course, if you've already UV unwrapped things to do materials or something like that, keep them the same. Sometimes if you do the Smart UV Project or Project, I don't know which one it is, it will kind of mess things up if you don't do it right. So let's see. Next, we go to Object, click. Edit mode. This one you can see, wow, that is what we call a mess right there. So now let's go ahead and see what happens when we clean this one up. Oh, it worked, but let's see. It's already done, so you can't see it again. And let's go to this one. Edit mode, UV, Smart UV. That one's already done. See, this is what we're talking about. This is all messed up. Much better. So yeah, you'll do that for all of the objects. And like I was saying, you could turn them off just to make sure, like you got light tracks. You turn it off after you've updated your UVs, just so you know which ones you've already done. that might make it easier for you to get through all of these and be sure you did them all. Okay, so now that we've got all of our artwork in and we've UV unwrapped all of the artwork, you want to make sure, if you haven't already, that you UV unwrap everything else to make sure that it is all nice and organized. So you do that very easy by just clicking on an object you'd like to UV unwrap, tab over, and it's easy if you're in the UV editing mode over here to be able to visualize your UV. So I've got that selected, and then we go to UV and we make sure we hit A to make sure we have everything selected, and then we go Smart UV Project. Okay. And that gives you the proper UV layout for your object so that when you export it, it imports and will work right with materials. So you actually have to go through each one of these and do that. The easiest way to do that is you go through, you pick an object here. So if I pick this object, and, oh, well, it's going to be just a small part of one of the objects. I've already got UV unwrapped. But click on an object, go to the object, tab over, go to Smart UV Project, OK. And you'll see the UV layout change as you do this. So every object, same thing. OK, tab over, OK, and you're just going to do that for every single object. And once you're done, then you'll be ready to import it into the Unreal Engine. First, you got to export it though. Okay, so we got it all done here. We're going to go ahead and select the whole thing, and we're going to go to File, Export, go layout, hit A to select everything, go File, Export as an FBX, and we'll go to our where we've been saving our FBX folders, and I'm going to actually create a new folder because I've got to keep this organized. I've already done a lot of this, and I'm just going to call it Color Gallery FBX Demo. And we only want to save the mesh object and the selected objects. So that way we make sure that we don't grab anything wrong. The rest of this should all be fine. And then we export. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and close this down and open up the Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine can be downloaded at Epic Games. Go to Epic Games. And Unreal Engine. Download. And then you just follow the steps. You'll download the Epic Games launcher here. Once that's done, okay, then you'll go to library and you add your engine to the library. Okay, once you've got it all added, we launch it. Okay, and now we're ready to start a new project. So we go to Games, Next, and we'll select our template, first person template, Next. And then we choose a folder, and this is where it's going to live. So I'm going to choose from on my desktop, Polychroma 2021, Unreal Engine, and I'm actually going to delete this project and start a new one. Okay, and then maximum quality, ray tracing disabled, desktop console. This is for higher quality stuff. If you've got an older computer, you might actually go for scalable 2D, 3D here. Maximum quality is going to be your best bet if you feel like your computer's up to it. And then we go to create project. Oh, sorry. We go to with starter content, and that'll be some extra features that you can use, and we create our project. Okay, so now this is the first person template, and it basically comes with a bunch of functionalities and stuff, many of which are really nice, and some of which we want to get rid of. So I'm going to click on all of the geometry in the arena here, which just like in Blender, you've got all of your files located up here. These are all the properties. This is your media and stuff, and this is some things you can add to the scene. The way you navigate the space is right click and hold it, rotates your view around, left click and zoom it in while clicking left is kind of like walking through the space. Zoom zooms the same way it does. And then if you wanted to zoom in on one specific object, you click on it and then you hit F for center it full screen. Okay, that's kind of just some quick and easy ways of getting around. And then of course shift and middle mouse wheel pans around the space. Okay, so let's go ahead and get rid of all of this geometry that we don't need because we're going to be bringing in our own. Arena, delete, cubes, bye-bye. Editor cubes, big wall, all of you. See you later. We are going to keep our lighting. The type of light we've got in here right now is our light source. We've got a post-process volume. We've got a skylight. And then we've got some atmospheric fog and spherical reflection captures. What that does is it makes it so shiny objects shine the right way. And we'll be modifying a bunch of these things later. Let's just keep deleting all this floor person template word. Okay. And now we're ready to bring in our geometry. Other things you see here, for example, this is our first person camera. That's where our game mode is going to start. This is basically the player start information. This is the skylight. It's telling you what angle or how the light is hitting. And this is the light source. You can adjust the angle of this. When you adjust the angle by rotating it, you can change the time of day. And you can recognize this gizmo that we've seen before. In Unreal Engine, if you hit the space bar, it switches to rotate, and that's how you change the time of day. And hit it again, and it's scale. That doesn't do much for this, but for other objects, scale will pull and change the direction and size of things. So that comes in handy later on. Okay, down here is where we're going to create most of our stuff. Go to Content Browser here, and we're going to create a new folder, and we're going to call this Gallery, Kellogg. Okay. And then we are actually just going to find our FBX file, which is located in a place where we're always going to keep it there. Don't ever change the location of this. So we go to FBX. I've got this new folder down here, and that's what I'm going to bring in by just clicking, dragging, and dropping. And then it asks you some questions. You want to make sure all of this, these are little drop-down tabs. Make sure that all of this is the same. So especially here, I'm going to uncheck generate light map UVs because I'm going to import my own. I don't want to combine the meshes. That'll make it all one object. And we don't have it UV mapped correctly for that. So we're not going to do that. The rest of it, yeah, Mickey space, import normals, all that looks good. And then we go import all. All right, so we've got a few little errors here. No smoothing groups, that's fine. Zero tangents, we'll be okay with these. That's not a lot of errors considering how much stuff we brought in. Okay, And then you can see as this starts to populate all of the materials and 3D objects. There's all of the artwork. There's more materials. There's the raw materials. All imported pretty good there. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is bring the geometry in. And because I've got this named in a really good way, it should already be selected as well. So I could just click on one of the 3D objects. And when I drag it and just drop it into the scene there, and I'm actually going to adjust the location of these objects. So over here on the right, click on details. And if you don't have world settings, it's really important you do have world settings. So go to Window, find world settings, and make sure that's clicked to have that on, because we're going to be talking about world settings later. If you missed that, it's going to be a problem. So go to details here, and I'm going to pick a location, and I've got one kind of picked already. So this is going to be my coordinates. So I'm going to do -1605, 50, and 1069. Not that those are like lucky numbers or anything like that. It's just that's the way I had it set up on the other one, and I'm just going to keep it all the same so I have it remembered. And F. Okay, let's go into our gallery space and see how everything looks. All right, we UV'd everything properly. We've got all of this stuff looking really quite nice. Okay, so it is all in here. I've got materials on most things. Yeah, so some of the 3D objects, you can see kind of where I am with this. We walk outside, we've got some missing materials, but we didn't have materials on the object before, so it's fine. We're gonna make some new materials and stuff here. Okay. So next, let's talk a little bit about the walkthrough and how to get your objects to work the way we want them to. So first things first, I'm going to select some of these planes and stuff and hit spacebar, move it to the up button, move it on up. This is our camera, so we definitely need to move that up, over, and then I'm going to hit the space bar and rotate it so it's facing the front door 90 degrees. Space bar again twice, grab my green arrow, bring it back out because I want it to kind of start right about there. So that's our player character. So that's where we're going to be beginning. We move the skylight up, we move directional light, just kind of moving these things around. And that really doesn't matter that much where that is, but okay. All right, now we're ready to start talking about the physics of this world. So if we have these different types of views here that we can look at. If we decided we wanted to play it and start walking through, we can't get into anything because we're being blocked by the physics of the geometry. And so let's check on that and see what's going on here. So if I change this from lit to collisions, this is the first visualization you all need to know. You can see that I've got, these are the things that I'm going to walk into basically, and that's why I can't get into the space. So if I click on, say, this object here, which is the outside gate, I don't even really want a collision on that. It's fine if I can walk through it. Not a big deal. So I will actually go to the collision on the detail setting here, scroll down to where it says collision, and it says default here. If I change that to no collision, it gets rid of it. If I change this one to no collision, it gets rid of it. These are the sculpture objects, which maybe I don't want to be able to run into those or walk through those. So I can change the collisions on this to make sure that it works the way we want it to. The way you do that is you come over here into the list here and right click on it, and we go to edit, and then we can go to where it says collision here, which means of course blocking you from walking into it. We remove the collision. We go back to collision. We add a simplified collision, which was this one right here. And then we come over here and we scroll down to where it says collision complexity. We want a more complex, you can see that green, that's not complex enough. So then we go to use complex as, there we go, see that? Now it's surrounding the object. We save it. And we're going to have to do that for basically each thing here. So here we go again. Edit, collision, remove collision. Collision, add a simplified collision, scroll over, project default, complex, simple, save, close. Next. We basically have to do that for all of the assets that we want to be able to collide with. And you also have to have collisions turned on for anything you want to interact with. So if you're trying to do buttons that make things happen or anything like that later on, you want to make sure you do have some form of collision set for the object. Otherwise, it's not considered there. Okay, so then the key one, of course, is you want to make sure for the gallery walls, we've got a form of collision, so that we're going to set up as well. But I'm actually just, in the interest of time, going to turn off all these collisions. No collision. No collision. No collision. And you can do multiples at a time if you're just putting no collision. But most things you're going to want to set those up. Okay, so now if I hit play, I can shoot my ball through. Oh, and I can walk through. I can walk through pretty much all the walls. But yeah, so now it's all set up so I can walk through the space. All right. So that's collisions. Once you get the collisions set, we'll switch back to lit here. You're going to want to start playing a little bit with the game controller, how it's going to be controlled. So this thing has a big gun on it and it shoots things. And I don't want that. I just want a nice peaceful walk through the gallery. So I'm going to right click on my first person character here and go to edit first person character. I'm actually going to come in here and where it says spawn projectile, I'm going to delete that. I don't want any of this stuff. I don't need it. It's unnecessary. And I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to leave my stick input, mouse input, jump, and movement input there. Compile it. Compile basically means save it, put it in the code book. Then we're going to go to the viewport here, and we're going to look at our gun situation and just delete the arms, delete the gun. Cool. Don't need it. Compile. Got a problem still. So then we're going to switch back over to our construction script here and say, hey, what's wrong? Oh, okay, attach my gun. Well, yeah, I don't need to attach that anymore, so delete it. Compile again. Now it seems to be working. Okay, so now let's test it out. If we push play, we can walk through, no problem. Escape gets me back out. We did see also that we had a crosshairs in the middle of the screen, which we don't really need. So that is related to something called a HUD, whatever. You don't really need to know much about it. If I switch to world settings over here though, and go to my first person game mode and click here to make this come down, you can see I have a first person HUD here. I'm going to switch that to none. Now when I push play, no crosshairs. But, yeah, so that's it. No crosshairs. Brilliant. But the other problem is I like to have, now this isn't necessarily important for you, but I like to have my mouse on so that I can click on things in the interactive walkthrough that I've set up. How do I do that? I've got to create a new player controller. So those are located in the first person blueprint here. We go to blueprints and you can see, oh look, we've got our projectile, which we really don't need anymore. Game mode, this is our character, that's where it's located in the folders here. And I'm going to right click here, and this is where I can add blueprint classes. So blueprints are just information telling you how the world is built. I'm going to go over here to player controller, and I'm going to call this gallery controller. Open it up, and it looks very similar to what you've seen before. What I'm really interested in doing, though, is going to our viewport here and ensuring that we've got our mouse interface settings turned on. So showing mouse cursor, enabling click events, enabling mouse over events, and enabling touch events. Now that will set us up for success with our mouse. So we now have to change what player controller we're using to change it to the gallery controller. So come over here, player controller, and we'll change it to gallery controller. Now when we come in here, we can see I've got my mouse. And eventually when I go to click on things or whatnot, I'll be able to do that. Still got some collision issues that I'll tighten up later, but I really don't care at the moment, so I'm going to leave it alone. Y'all want to make sure that you get all that set up right. Okay. So the next thing that we got to talk about is lighting. So we'll do some lighting and then we'll do some materials, and that's basically all you need to know for this video. Get to that point and you'll be able to make a lot of really cool decisions. So lighting is very similar to what lights are like in Blender. You basically click on lights over here and you've got multiple types. I like to use spotlights because I'm in a gallery situation. Why not, right? So if I click and drag and kind of hover over a certain area, I can drop this light in. Okay, pull it up, move it over a little bit, and there you go. So this little light here is going to be a spotlight. And you can set up different parameters on it. So again, in details over here, whatever you're clicked on, it's going to give you all of the options for that object. So I've got my light, and now I'm going to switch it from stationary to static because I want it to be cooked into the scene. Stationary has more dynamic qualities to it, but the problem is if you use a lot of lights, there's issues with the stationary lights. So static light is better for saving on processing and that kind of stuff. When I click on it, you can see the intensity. I can make it more or less intense. You can see the color. I can warm it or cool it. And I don't want to use light color on this one unless you're making some sort of a crazy colorful scene. You can do warm and cool. Just set the actual temperature of the light. That's usually the better way to do it. Okay, you have other parameters here. Inner cone, that gives it like a hot spot. See that little inner cone coming out? That's going to be like your major focal area. Outer cone, you can make it wider, so it takes over a lot more space. That's a good way to cheat, get a lot of light in your area at once. Source radius, this is going to give you like a feel for the size of the bulb. You can see it kind of coming out right there. Rotate a little bit so you can see that yellow little bar right there. Source radius. It's like the size of the bulb, right? Soft source radius is like how soft is the light. Source length, you can make it kind of a pill shape or something like that. So if you're doing like neon light bars, do something like that. Temperature, use temperature, and then you can kind of warm up the light, cool it down. And I'm just going to leave it the same. Effects world, cast shadows. If you wanted to make it use less memory, you can get rid of some of those. Indirect lighting intensity. That's pretty nice too. The other one is if you click on this and you see use inverse square fall off. That's really nice for creating how much fill inside of the light environment is given off by the light. So you can see the difference between using it and not using it. If you use it, this is no longer a requirement, and it kind of automatically does it. But you can manually tweak how much the fall off happens here. Shadow resolution, shadow bias. You don't really need to mess with much of this stuff. But once you get it kind of nailed in the way you want, you can check to see how it's going to look by doing something called building. And so when you build this, you typically have it in preview. So lighting quality is in preview, makes it go quickly. So I will go ahead and just click on build, and you'll see all the previews that are written around here. Those will all go away as it builds. Okay, going ahead and saving. The lighting has been built, and we did get a few errors. There were some objects that have overlapping UVs. That means I must have missed them when I UV unwrapped objects in Blender. So if that continues to be a problem, what we'll do is we go over here, Kellogg Demo, Gallery Demo 2D, 3D, 63, the pot on number 3, and we've got another object here and another object here. So we just go back over to Blender and we find those objects. So the pot refers to this, and then we go tab and we go to, and we want to fix this before we start getting into texturing and stuff. I'll show you why. So UV editing, and UV, Smart UV Project, okay, or just unwrap, okay. So that's done. What other ones were there? Okay, so that's this one here. Let's go back to Blender. And this one right here, tab, select, object. Oh, that looks really bad. So then we go Smart UV Project. Okay, looks good. Save it. Which other ones do we got? And then the screen here, 154 screen. And that is this one over here. Screen and tab. Oops. Sorry, that's the wrong place. Tab over. There we go. This one is saying it's overlapping a little bit, so let's click on it, scale it down just a scotch, okay? And save it. And then you just export those. So for example, I would tab, select this, and you just do it by itself, and you go File, Export, FBX, title it. I've got actually my Kellogg FBX folder here, and this is 154 FBX. Go ahead and export it. Okay. And then the way we fix this in the Unreal Engine is we come over here and we select both of these objects, right click on where you see it here and go to Browse to Asset. And then we can re-import with new file, because I can't re-import it with the same file because that's changed now. So I can only do one at a time. So do this one, right click, re-import with new file. And then we go to our location. And there we go, open it up. And then we'll do the same with this one, with new file. Open it up, okay. And now when we rebuild it, that should be correct. Okay, so we can see our light is hitting our object here. But we can also see we need new materials, and really the quality is not that great. It will get better, but another thing to look at is the way light is hitting stuff. So if I switch this from lit to optimized light map density here, anything that's green is in the good zone. Anything that's blue is in the bad zone. So you can see these squares on each object here. You want to increase the resolution of the light maps for anything that's not green. If it's red, it means it's a little too dense. You can lower that a bit, or you can just leave it the same. But I'm actually going to leave that alone. It's not a huge deal. If you're having issues with lighting, that might be a place to look, but this is fine for right now. A lot of the issues with lighting are just that I've got it in lower quality preview mode right now. When we do it final export, it should come out nicer. So that's this kind of light. We've got other lights here. Point lights are great. I can work on these just the same way. They've got a little bit more options as far as just they light over everywhere. Just think of them as a light bulb, right? And if you go back over to your details here, you can see again, you can change your intensity. If I scroll down here and click the down arrow, inverse squared fall off, I can also increase or decrease the fall off, make it like light up the whole room. You can really cheat there and have it light up the whole room, but you can see it's pretty harsh. So those are fun lights to play with as well. And then there's the rectangle light, which actually uses a lot more energy in a lot of ways, so we don't want to use those very often. But they're nice because they're directional, they're panel, they light things very nicely, especially for like product design, very similar to what we used before. You've got a direction. You can actually come over here again, and we can change intensity, source width. You can see you can make it really wide, light up a bunch of stuff all at once. Quite nice. And that's good because you can use it almost as like multiple spotlights at one time if you wanted to. And you don't have to make it static because you won't use very many of them. You can leave them stationary and it'll have more dynamic lighting. So that's really nice too. And then otherwise, materials are going to be the next step. So we can see I've got this object here. And when I click on it, you can see I've got glow red here and it's not glowing. So we can come into our settings here, which double clicking on the object in the material. So I got it clicked. It's over here in our properties. Double click over here. This is our materials editor, which looks just like texturing in Blender, and it works pretty similar. So I want to make this an emissive material instead. So I'm going to make it a glowing red material. So first I'm going to right click here and break the links. Then I'm going to come over here and I want to add a multiplier so I can control like a dimmer switch, right? So if I right click in here, I can type multiply. And this is a really handy one. Go to emission color, bring in our top one here to A. And then we plug in a constant here. So pull that out, constant. And we can make it 5, 10, 15, 50. 50. Let's do 50. With that constant, you can make it more than just 1. Usually a constant, you go from 0 to 1, 1 being 100%, 0 being, 50, 0%, 0.5 being 50%. But with the emission, you can bump it way up to 100 even, and you can see it gets even brighter. So that's a simple emissive material. Okay, and now you can see it's glowing. Back here in the gallery space, we've also got these LEDs on the top here that we want to make. So right here it says glow blue. It's not glow blue. Let's make glow blue. So let's open this up. And we're going to actually bring in an image texture here. So a little something different. That's a parameter, which is just colors, and you can change all the colors there. But I want to do a texture sample. Okay, texture sample, a little bit different. So now I'm going to open this, and I'm going to find that there's nothing there. So I can actually just import, dragging and dropping again. And so let's go to my materials folder, which I've got on my desktop in Blender materials. And here's my color wheel. And that's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to click and drag and drop that into here. Okay. And now when I switch back to my glow blue and I go to this drop down, I can find color wheel, just start typing it, and there it is. And that's going to be the image that I use. And I'm going to take my RGB and put it in the base color. Oh, no, I'm going to put it in the emission color. No, I'm going to do a multiplier again here. Multiply, base color into there, and constant out of here. And I'll do 20. That might be too much. 10. Okay. The last thing I'm going to do here is actually put a rotator on it so it's animated. This is the fun one. So if I pull this out here, go to rotator. And you can see it's rotating. And I can put a constant. Actually, no. Rotator's already got the parameters here. So I can increase my speed. I can change the way it rotates centered. All that kind of stuff. These are the parameters over here that I can change on the rotator. So if I click out of this, I've got the parameters for the entire material, things like opacity, that kind of stuff. But I'm going to leave it just like this. Apply it. Close it. And now you can see I've got the rotating going on here. Other fun stuff. We need some glass for our windows here. So let's do that. We brought in some starter content. So if I go to content, starter content, I can go to materials here, and there's all of these materials. And glass is right here. So I can pop in some glass, and some glass. Awesome. And then say I wanted to do some like brushed stainless steel. Ooh. Or some chrome. That looks a little better. Do some metallics on there. Sometimes these are not, don't have the right tiling, and they're kind of complicated materials to fix, so you might want to make your own materials. I basically use the glass and some of these metals to make my materials here. If you go to the starter content texture folder, this is where you can also find a lot of cool stuff to make your own materials. So for example, if I wanted to make my own metal, like say I want to make a metal for this, I can come over here and where it says world grid material, oh, I need to, oops, I can make a new material. Go to, let's see, what is this? I want, where is the metals? If I type metal, there we go. Steel. It's a normal map. And this is the image texture. Or here's aluminum. Yeah. Okay. And then usually I'll click on this little arrow over here, and I'll have a folder in here that I'll call under Kellogg Gallery. Have a new material, new folder, and call it materials. And then I'll just keep my textures in there. Let's go to content, starter content, textures, and I'm going to take this one and put it into Kellogg Gallery Materials folder. The reason for that is later on, if I delete the folder, I want to make sure I still keep all of the materials that I made. Okay, so under Kellogg Gallery here, if I click on this and right click, I can go create material. That'll start to set it up. And then I can double click on this one, and I can add a normal map to it. So just like I did over here, I'm going to add a texture sample. And I'm going to take this and plug it into the normal here, and then come over here, click on it, come over here, go to metal, aluminum, not rust, steel. So that'll give the metal the texture. This will give the metal the color, but we want to make it metallic. So we pull out from here and go to constant. And from there, we're going to increase this constant to make it more metallic. There we go. More metallic. And now let's go over to roughness here and do a constant to make it polished. So 0 is going to be fully polished, like that. And you can also see, it's looking a little bit funky, so we need to maybe put a multiplier in here to control how bumpy this thing is. So multiply, plug this into here instead. Okay, just rearrange those, put a constant, and 0 is there. We'll put it up to maybe 0.25. Maybe 0.1. So you're controlling the bump on it. Okay, something like that. But you can see metallic. It's getting there. Looks a little bit like tinfoil, but we'll put that on this. There we go. And the best way to actually modify textures for baking purposes is to click on the object, right click on it here, edit it, and then you see under the material slot, it still says world, and that's not right. So we want to do the metal we created. What was it called, actually? T-aluminum. And so now it's actually applied this way, and save it, and it's a little bit cleaner. So that's a little bit more about it. Now let's finish this thing out by actually adding a floor here. So let's go back to our gallery here. If we look under our content for our gallery floor, we can look for concrete, I believe. Yeah, this is the one that was imported, and it's a little bit off, right? So let's make a new one. No. Duplicate this material, because the concrete floor is going to be a little bit different than like the concrete on the sculpture here. So Concrete one's fine though. We'll call it that. We'll pull this over here. We've got this texture coordinate. Let's bump up the coordinate here to 30, 30, and that's going to give a little bit more texture to that. And then we're going to bring the roughness down the constant, and we'll put it at 0.25 or something. So it's 25%. Apply, save, close, because it's a larger bit of flooring to cover. Okay. So we need to add some lamp glass as well. Let's increase our lamp. Take this off from here, put it on to emission, multiply, and pop it into there. Pull this out to here to a constant. And we'll bump it up to 20. Apply, save, close. And now our lamps are all glowing. Okay. Yeah, so just keep playing with the materials and you'll find your way, making sure that you're putting enough light in and all that kind of stuff. Space bar. And keep playing with it, and there will be more to this later on. I'm going to talk a little bit about getting some foliage in here and that kind of stuff, but for now, playing with materials and making sure that you can walk through the space, that's a nice start to the process here. Thank you very much.